Phil Hewlett from the KFI 24-hour newsroom. A judge has shot down the Los Angeles Police Union's request to block the city's coronavirus vaccination mandate. The judge said the union did not provide enough evidence to show the mandate presents any immediate harm. Huntington Beach police arrested 2 men and seized $1 million worth of illegal drugs. Officers found more than 300 pounds of meth, 3 dozen pounds of coke, some fentanyl, and a couple of guns. It's unknown when Disneyland can reopen the It's a Small World ride again. Crews attempted to fire up the iconic ride yesterday, but all that water flooded the machinery. So somehow that song will play over and over again in your head this morning. Southland weather from KFI. It's going to be sunny and hot again. Low 90s for your highs inland. It'll get into the low 80s at the beaches, and things will more or less stay that way through the weekend. Right now, 61 in Fountain Valley, Rancho Santa Margarita, 67, Long Beach, 64, and in Chatsworth, it is 72 degrees. We lead local from the KFI 24-hour newsroom. I'm Phil Hewlett. In Diamond Bar, we have good news. Earlier crash that was on the 57 northbound connected to the 60 eastbound has been cleared for lanes. Your drive is recovering in that area. And in Pomona, this is on the 71 southbound at Rio Rancho. Cleanup crews from an earlier crash on the right shoulder there. Watch for delays. Anaheim Hills, 91 westbound at the 241 southbound connector. Little fender bender there blocking that transition road. KFI at the Sky helps get you there faster. I'm Brian Vance. Hey, you don't have to wait for Veterans Day to thank a veteran. Thank a vet today. And now, the top 5 reasons to visit Morongo. Number 5.
Come and get your wall stuff. Wall burgers, wall brewskis, wall bites. All the wall things at Wall Burgers.
Number 4.
Thanksgiving Essentials Giveaway. Get a handy toaster oven when you earn 500 points on your rewards card. The 15th or 16th.
3.
Yes, that is a 30-foot LED screen with all the games on it every Sunday at Sideline Bar. Next question, please.
And the number 2.
Ride Row. Live December 4th. Tickets are selling fast. Get yours today.
And the number 1 reason.
Feast full of dollars. You can win $500 cash playing table games with your rewards card. Wednesdays and Thursdays, 3 p.m. to midnight.
Morongo Casino Resort and Spa. Morongo. Good times.
Why would a plumber just tell me what it costs to unclog my drain over the phone? Is it that complicated?
No, it's not. It makes no sense at all. They obviously have a price.
Whoa, you've got a nice aroma. Who are you?
Mike Diamond, the smell good plumber.
Will you tell me how much to unclog my drain?
$99.
Then you haven't seen it.
Don't need to. Doesn't matter if it's a kitchen sink or a mainline sewer stoppage. The Smell Good Plumbers at Mike Diamond will unclog almost any drain for $99.
Almost.
Yeah, there are a few exceptions, but you can read all about them on our website before you call. Just go to thesmellgoodplumber.com.
Wow, you're like up front and everything. I just called a guy named Bubba who wouldn't tell me anything.
No Bubba's here, ma'am. Just professional plumbers who show up on time, smell good, and unclog drains for $99. Call us. 1-800-446-MIKE.
Contact your license number 399170.
AMCO presents That You Didn't Know.
Bet you didn't know that your car's transmission is made up of 800 pieces. Also, bet you didn't know that AMCO's fixed over 40 million transmissions, and that AMCO offers a nationwide warranty.
Are you still driving around with that check engine light on? AMCO will read and report the trouble codes on your vehicle for free. Call them today.
That's AMCO, AA-MCO.
We survived winter in Siberia, my mother told me, by literally eating dirt. Hello, I'm John Acoyan, owner of Rooter Hero Plumbing. I can't imagine living like that, but dirt, my mom told me, had nutrients. We are so fortunate to live in the world's richest country, but every day children go hungry. At Rooter Hero Plumbing, we want to help, so we're bringing back our Hero Help program. Before COVID-19, we fed the homeless, adopted families, and cleaned the bay. But our most popular program was handing out canned goods. Rooter Hero will once again hand out food with no questions asked. Simply pull up in your car and we'll help your family. Go to rooterhero.com/HeroHelps for the date and location. If you want to donate canned goods, call us at 866-DRAIN-77 for a Rooter Hero Plumbing location nearest you. Thank you.
Everybody needs a hero.
CO 102-8886.
KFI AM 640. Premier Networks presents Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie.
And welcome back to Coast. We're going to take calls next hour with the pastor, so get ready for that as we talk about, are we living in a simulated universe? Think about that and your thoughts on God as well. We've got lots more to talk with Jeff about when we come back to Coast AM. ParanormalDate.com finally did it. Went over 119,000 signed-up members. Now we're heading for that goal of 120,997 people to go at ParanormalDate.com. ParanormalDate.com. And to get there quickie, we need a 60-pluser.
We do indeed. And of the 119,000, there are people who desire a person a bit more mature. So we've got you covered there, too, at ParanormalDate.com/seniors. That's for people who are 60-plus. People that think like you do, 60-plus is ParanormalDate.com/seniors.
At ParanormalDate.com, you meet the most fantastic people.
Hi, I'm Tom.
Hi, I'm Jennifer. What brings you here?
Yeah, I'm here to meet someone who understands me.
How so?
Well, I'm into UFOs, ghosts, aliens, Bigfoot, conspiracy theories, the paranormal. It's that kind of stuff. But you seem to find anyone who gets it.
Oh, well, nice to meet you, Tom. I gotta go.
Okay. Guess that's not your cup of tea. You sure?
Yeah, good luck with that.
I can't meet anyone when I'm out, and I really can't find a website for my unique interests. What are you going to do?
Have you thought about ParanormalDate.com?
What? Who are you?
I'm a paranormal matchmaker, and it's ParanormalDate.com. It's a website for people looking for people like them. Stuff you like, remember?
Interesting. I'll give it a try.
Well, let's try this again.
Hi, I'm Tom.
Hey, I'm Deb. Your profile on ParanormalDate.com looked very interesting. So you really saw a UFO?
Well, yeah. It was so intense, but not as intense as meeting you.
You're an alien chasing flirt, but I kind of like it.
Wow, this ParanormalDate.com thing really works.
Maybe ParanormalDate.com is for you. People with an interest in things they hear on George's show find their match daily. So if you're looking for that special someone with an interest in UFOs, ghosts, aliens, Bigfoot, conspiracy theories, and of course, the paranormal, come to the dating site inspired by George Norrie. It's always free to search, and if you decide to upgrade to our amazing new features, use promo code GEORGE for a great discount. ParanormalDate.com. You are not alone. This fall, Bespoke Post is back with a new lineup of must-have Box of Awesome collections. From autumn craft beers to cozy threads and camping gear essentials, Box of Awesome has collections for every part of your life. Each box costs only $45, but has more than $70 worth of gear inside. Get 20% off your first monthly box when you sign up at boxofawesome.com and enter code GEORGE at checkout. That's boxofawesome.com, code GEORGE. Whether you're vaccinated or not, it's important to know the symptoms of COVID and its variants. Fever is the leading sign, and only the Exogen temporal scanner thermometer has been proven accurate with more than 100 clinical studies. Non-contact thermometers have no clinical evidence behind them and cannot be relied on. Be vigilant and seek medical advice at the first sign of fever. Be accurate with Exogen. Learn more at Exogen.com.
Real people, real stories.
So I had an appointment with the surgeon, and he was telling me what all he was going to do, and it was just absolutely horrendous. I came home, I started on Carnivora, and I called and canceled my surgery, and she said, "Are you going someplace else?" I said, "No, I'm taking care of it myself." She said, "Okay." And my problem on my skin went away. I have bruising that's all over my arms. 3 weeks after I was on the carnivore, I noticed, I'm looking at my arms, and I said, gee, I don't have any bruises on my arms, and I'm always full of bruises. I can't put my finger on it, but I know something's happening. I have to tell you, that has to be the carnivore.
Call 866-836-8735. That's 866-836-8735. Or visit carnivore.com. That's CARNIVORE.com. KFORA.com. Use coupon code George to get 15% off your order.
And welcome back to Coast. George Norrie with you, along with Pastor Jeff Grupp, as we are talking about his work and his thoughts as a simulated universe. His websites are linked up at coasttocoastam.com. One of his books includes God, Faith, Discovering the Pure Logic Built into the Fabric of Reality. Jeff, what do you mean by a term mind screen?
Yeah, that's a term that I got from Film Studies, a book on Ingmar Bergman that I read, Princeton University Press. I think it's called Mind Screen, sitting right behind me in my office here. But that is a term I use to describe the simulated consciousness, which is what all of you are. If the simulation theory is true, George, you, me, anybody listening, is a simulation consciousness. I call it a mind screen. So your mind, and your mind is presented to you as a screen of visualization. And, it's got sound, it has feeling, it has moving color images with all these different shapes and predictable patterns and so forth. And your mind is a screen. And mind screen is just, that's all anybody listening has ever known. And for all you know, that is all that reality is. And the article that I just published in the journal, Professional Academic Philosophy Journal, Metaphysica, Volume 22, Number 2, says that that's all that can exist, are mind screens and or point-sized, what are called philosophical atoms, which are the true basic building blocks of reality, which are little points of energy that have no size, which is actually, believe it or not, George, has been the standard position in quantum physics, really up until string theory, which I'm a kind of an opponent of string theory. I think it's just philosophy. It's not really a science. It's a mathematical philosophy that really can't be proven or disproven. And up until then, we had what was called the standard model of quantum physics, which involves the scientific finding that particles are points. And so that leads directly to simulation theory. If everything's a point with no size, that how we experiencing all this stuff, because everything would be invisible. Something with no size is invisible. It doesn't have a surface, doesn't have a color, but all we see is surfaces and colors in our mind screen. So we've got a big disconnect here between reality and what we experience as reality. This is kind of a basis for part of the article that I wrote, and it indicates that people, like we talked about earlier, people want to resist the idea of simulation theory. Let me speak to that real quick, and then let's talk about Musk and Bostrom's, what's wrong with their hypothesis, which is spread all over the world. And I think the reason people often, this is not to implicate anybody, this happens a little bit with me too, the reason there's resistance to simulation theory is because it's like a sort of dying. Because all we know is the world, and people assume that if reality is a simulation, then everything we see around us is not real, which is simply not true. Everything you see around you is real. It's just that it's a state of consciousness, not a mind-independent set of shapes and matter objects outside of you. In other words, you go through your whole life without knowing there's a simulated reality, and if somebody listening to the show tonight wakes up to that there's a simulated reality, it's not like they're going to go through the whole day tomorrow thinking of simulated reality. They're going to still go as if everything is mind independent of them. There's this external reality. However, George, if someone does go through their moment-to-moment life, realizing everything is simulated reality, they will fall into a state of spiritual ecstasy. Now, why is that the case? We already cited the verse 1 Peter 2:11, where the lust of the flesh wage war against the soul, and there's also another verse, James 4:4. Those who are friends of the world are enemies of God. What this all means is that for some reason, which is, it takes some explaining, when one focuses their mind away from God and focuses it on other things, such as the world, it leads to emptiness. It leads to consciousness which is not filled with God, which is a consciousness which does not have joy, which according to the Bible, the only source of joy is God. So you're going to be focusing your consciousness on things where joy is not. So therefore, you get the expected results. We live in a culture of addiction, desperation, emptiness, People going from, addiction to addiction, where addiction can be TV and beer. It can be your job. It can be your own personality. It doesn't have to be. A lot of people in the jail I work at have been hooked on methamphetamine, which is sort of the most extreme drug in our culture, sort of a I would say a satanic plague, that's all over the place right now. But so to get to the point, the addiction of the world, rather than rejecting the world and looking past it to the creator of the world, the one who's in all things but not of all things, which is God, Jesus, that right there is the reason that I think simulation theory often, when people stumble across it, it's like dying to what you've always known. Now, but like I said, there is a flip side to it that it does lead to a state of spiritual ecstasy. In fact, in some of, I talk about what's called Omnipresence Prayer.
Mm-hmm.
I've got some sermons I've done on that. I talk about that. That's sort of a main ministry theme that comes up in the jail every single week, frequently, because I'm in the jail quite a bit, and it's always being discussed. Now, I don't usually call it Omnipresence Prayer. I just call it true prayer, and that's when you actually look at God. Now, most people, I think you can have whole churches full of 500 people who are sitting there all praying, and nobody's looking at God. Now, if people listening,
they might not know what to look for.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm not saying they're bad people or dumb or something. It's just you got to think about it. Like when I talk to you, George, my consciousness is going to intermittently be literally pointing at you, and to talk to God, we have to do the exact same thing. Our consciousness literally has to point at Him. The Bible talks about this. Acts 16:30-31, John 17:3, all over the place. And, if people talking directly to God, what they're doing is looking at God. Hebrews 12:2 says, fix your eyes on Jesus. So when we look at God, we're going to be in a state of absolute overwhelmedness, in a state of joy, ecstasy, incredible peace, elation, and so forth. It's just simply an automatic result. Even if we're in the valley of the shadow of death, we're going to be also on the mountaintop in what I call the Jesus high or God high. And this is what really everybody in the world needs. And it's what I think what everybody wants. And everybody's restless and miserable until they get it. That's my opinion. And this is really what's taught in the jail. Now, I don't really use these terms. I usually use Bible verses in the jail. But this is essentially the message of what I call omnipresence prayer, which is praying, looking out into your reality, knowing that God is in all things, pointing your mind right at Him, believing Him with perfect lack of, non-doubt. Doubt is the ultimate enemy of prayer. If I doubted I was talking to you right now, George, I'd kind of be a little bit psychotic, because,
Is it possible, though, Jeff, that mankind created God because they can't comprehend how life started? As an excuse.
Then where did everything come from? I mean, where did...
I agree with you. I'm just playing the devil's advocate for a moment.
I don't think it's possible. The first chapter of my book, God's Faith, talks about what I call new proof for the existence of God. I can sum it up really easily here.
Please.
Everybody look inside your consciousness. You've got things like feelings and thoughts, for example. What are these things? These, especially feelings, they don't look like bricks. They don't look like wood and rock. They don't look like anything physical. And I bet you most people out there are going to see it's spiritual. Even atheist philosophers will say, oh yeah, our consciousness appears as if it's spiritual. Well, it's kind of funny. I mean, if you're looking at it and it's spiritual, then it is spiritual. So your mind is a spirit. And that's exactly what the Bible says. We are spirits created God's image, and God's a spirit, John 4:24. So the point is that if we're a spirit, then if our inner minds are who we really are, that it says in the Bible in 1 Samuel 16:7 that when God looks at us, He looks at us, our inside, our spirit, our real self. So if we're a spirit, then we're created by only a spirit can create another spirit. So we're created by a spirit, and then so you wonder, okay, well, what's the spirit that's created us? And then the spirit would have to tell you who it is. It would give you its name, and it says in the Bible, God refers to His name as being I am that I am. And what's your name, George? Your name is I am. My name is I am. Everybody refers to himself as an I am. Mm-hmm. We all have the same name, and it's half of God's name. We all share half of the same name as God. God is simply telling us that I'm the Spirit who has created you which are all spirits. That's kind of a summary of chapter 1 of my book, God's Faith.
Well, if I had asked you the same question when you were an atheist, how would you have answered it?
This is a fun, George, this literally, when I was 35 years old, I published an article called Meteorological Nihilism in the journal Axiomates when I was still teaching, and this I used to say this was my big breakout article, but now I think the more recent stuff I published is. But that article led to, this is what I just said, that consciousness cannot be an aspect of the physical world. This is an academic article, 175. It was really like a PhD dissertation, and it led to these conclusions here that mind cannot be physical. Now, there's a huge backlash against this in academia. This was also discussed heavily in my book, God's Faith, chapter 1, where everyone wants to say that consciousness is brain tissue, brain systems, neurons, and that simply is not possible. Because if I look at my consciousness, look at a feeling, I do not see brain tissue. I do not see neurons. It's something fundamentally different, of a different order of stuff, different order of reality than brain tissue. It's a supernatural. It's spiritual. It looks like it's spiritual when I look at it, just like the Bible says. And I don't know how. And there's like Trenton Merrick, for example, is a really interesting philosopher who writes on a lot of the same things that I have. I think what did he teach? Rutgers or something? I forgot. I forgot. But he's also written on the same thing. Like when you look at consciousness and you look at brain, and the two simply appear to be on different sides of the street. How do you link one to the other? If I'm looking at a visual image in from my mind screen, my consciousness has a visual image like it does right now. I'm looking at my computer screen, but the image is actually inside my consciousness. I believe it's out there, but it's actually in my mind. Where is the TV screen of this visual image in my head? George, if there's a TV screen in my head, I've got a serious problem and a medical emergency. I need to get to the hospital. There is no TV screen in my head.
Finish the show first, then go to the hospital. Okay?
Pardon?
Finish the show first, then go to the hospital.
I'll definitely do that. So I mean, there is. If you can look all over. Now there's a guy named Jack Lant who says that he's discovering patterns like visual images in the primary visual cortex of the brain. I discussed that in the last chapter of God's Faith, and I just simply show that it's absolutely false. And it's very easy to refute that and show that it's just based on inept research, which we can go through later, but I just wanted to at least mention that. So yeah, there's this huge draw. If academics all over the world suddenly said, yeah, okay, we agree, let's just take everything for exactly what it looks like, consciousness looks spiritual, so therefore it is, George, what you have then is you have a worldwide revolution which would point straight to the existence of a supernatural creator that has created all of our consciousnesses. We'd all look at ourselves as being created, not as coming from being animals or something. I'm not saying we're not animals, but we're animals with a supernatural ghost inside of us. We'd all look at ourselves that way, and it would lead to an incredible elevation of consciousness everywhere. But unfortunately, academia is going on this completely non-evidential thesis that brain is simply, consciousness is reducible to brain, which nobody has an argument for that. It's all, I discussed that heavily in chapter 1, and it just simply doesn't work. So do you want to discuss the Elon Musk Bostrom?
Yeah, that's especially the Musk thing, because that's the most current.
Yeah, so, Elon Musk, he is really just taking word for word Nick Bostrom of Oxford University. Elon Musk should do it. If you ever hear the show, you should do a little bit better job citing your source there, because it is, Bostrom gets the credit for that. It's a pretty remarkable paper.
When did he come out and say that? Nick did.
Bostrom's article is probably 20 years old now.
That long? Okay.
Yeah, he's been on, I think, Joe Rogan, and he's pretty well known, but Musk has really taken it over and popularized, which is kind of I like that. But here's the thing, though, George. The article I just published in Metaphysica on simulation that says God is the creator of simulations points out what I think is clearly a fatal flaw. Let's discuss that. That simulation theory has to be incorrect, and here's why. So what that simulation theory involves is the idea that information in our world right now, George, is increasing unbelievably. 100 years ago, there's no computers, and now we've got all the supercomputers in our pockets, these cell phones, and it's integrating with our bodies. And what's next?
That's true.
Super consciousness is soon. So what they say is, with the incredible elevation of information, in technology, soon we can see, soon there'll be creatures that in our world that can create simulations, and they've got reasons to say they'll create way more simulations than there are actual people, and so therefore it's more likely that you in fact are a simulation than not a simulation.
Right.
Now here's the problem with that. It sounds like, wow, that really makes
It's bizarre.
yeah, well, it's kind of a straightforward, remarkable argument until you realize one huge fatal problem. And that's this, George. The argument is using the elements of the simulation to make conclusions about what's outside the simulation. Let me explain that in simpler terms. Now, what they're saying is that, so our minds are a simulation. In this simulation, we see what's called civilization. And civilization is escalating towards being a super advanced civilization and beyond. Now, that's all locked into the simulation, okay? But what they do is they say that, no, that actually tells us what's outside the simulation, that there is actually creatures outside the simulation doing that to us. Now, and you're creating us, our minds, as simulations. So there's super advanced civilization creating our consciousnesses, and we're simulations. Now, the question is very odd. I don't know. It's very obvious. I don't think anybody's pointed this out before for some reason, besides academia. And that's the question: is how do we know that just because in our simulated consciousness there are these ideas like civilization and advanced beings and advanced civilization and so forth, that's what things are like outside of our consciousness, outside the simulation? And the answer is there's absolutely no reason to think that. And reality could be radically different and no beyond our imagination, nothing like we even imagine. And I give some specific examples in this article I just published of how that might look, of creatures and beings and so forth, would be completely different. So there's no way that things could be like we think they are in our simulated consciousness outside the simulation. So that's a fatal flaw. It's kind of like going real simple. It's kind of like this, George. It's like saying, in my simulated consciousness, which is, I'm locked into, I see apples.
All right, hold on, Jeff. Let's talk more about that when we come back. And we'll take phone calls next on Coast to Coast AM.
Find out more about tonight's guest. Log on to coasttocoastam.com.